Board of Education of Highlands Regional School District in the County of Ocean that adequate notice of this meeting was provided in accordance with the Open Public Meeting Act. The notice has been posted in the Board of Education office, junior high school, and high school buildings. The notice was also mailed to the Press of Atlantic City and filed with the municipal clerks of Bass River Township, Eagleswood Township, Little Egg Harbor Township, and the Borough of Tuckerton. Roll call, Mr. Brennan.
Mr. Bonnicky, Mrs. Chambers,
Present.
Ms. Hannadel, Mr. Kabricki,
Here.
Mrs. McVeigh. Here. Ms. Palladino.
Here.
Mrs. Pakakua.
Yep.
Mr. Williams.
Here.
And Mrs. Ernst.
Here.
I have a quorum.
I would like to have a motion to go into executive session for 1 hour for the purpose of negotiations, attorney-client communications, and personnel. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? For an executive at 6:05.
Pardon me?
And if you want, you can
Right.
simply have the board
We're back on.
president say item number 12, instructional, and you could do it that way. Some boards do it that way. Some boards have the superintendent say item number 12, instructional. It's really up to you as a board how you would like to do that. Yes. So you'd make the motion, the second, the discussion, and then the vote. Right. But you also have the opportunity during the work session now, under board forum, to ask any information as well.
Right. Work session is an open dialogue. It's not where we, one person speaks and gives an update. It's really, anyone can put something on that agenda too, and if you want to bring it up or discuss it.
So what is it that you all are asking that I do? What did you want?
I just think there's unfamiliarity with the new agenda.
Did they what, Jeff?
I don't think there should be any change
Unfamiliarity
in it.
with the agenda. Again, with the work session being at 9, where we're actually doing our work session, which takes place at our committee meeting, usually 8 days prior. I guess it's Stephen was saying, I'm gonna say, not knowing the work session was taking place here, I thought we were all to look at the agenda, bring up questions and talk about the agenda items. And then for the work session, we would discuss those items prior to presenting them for approval
Right.
in the committee report portion of the meeting.
And that is exactly correct.
I'm just
So
saying, I
are-
don't
we
know
are-
if that was, again, we read enough emails that are sent out, if that was presented in that fashion, if that was gonna be the time in which that was to be taken, but of course, I haven't been to a couple of meetings, and I could have been discussed at those meetings without my knowledge. But then Stephen wouldn't remember that, but then maybe I don't know.
Jeff, why are you talking so fast?
Just
It
go
was
around in a
just-
circle.
it was just one breath.
And yet he still understands. Are you complaining about your homework?
I've never done it.
No, and I will vouch for that.
I've done it in class.
So we're leaving it as is. Is that
Right, yes.
everybody, okay? That's awesome. And Jeff, I am going to ask them that you take care
I
of
will take care of personnel.
personnel. And, Pat, if you would take care of instructional,
Certainly.
I would appreciate it. And then what do we have? We have operations, so, Betty Ann, would you take care of operations? for
Gladly.
me? And, yeah, the report of the secretary, Tommy Leno, take care of that, please. Everything settled?
Yes.
Finance. Well, it's the same thing, finance.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. All righty, welcome all. Would y'all like to please rise for the pledge of allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The recognition has already been read, and roll call has been taken.
Are we live? I'm sorry?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Good,
Okay.
thank you.
There are, and Steve, you're gonna have to help me out here. There are several changes to the agenda this evening. There will be 2 additions, which I think are still B21 and B22. That's will be their numbers.
And B23.
And, okay, I missed B23. B21 is school health insurance fund. Yeah, I'm sorry.
There's copies out in public.
Oh, okay, there are copies out there. B22 is for the state health benefits. And what am I doing with B23?
It's the grievance.
And, yes, okay, B23 is a grievance that we had on the table that is being settled. I don't need to say anything about the tabling. That'll just go with it, that's fine. All right, also, in addition to those changes, we are tabling items 10 and 11 under personnel.
Okay. Past our other meetings, it was coming after residents forum, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Alrighty then. Now, could I have a motion, please, to approve the agenda with the listed changes? Yes, Mr.
I want to
Kowalski.
make a motion to suspend policy 0164 and approve the agenda with changes as indicated by our president.
Everybody hear that? A motion to suspend policy 0164? All right, due to the changes in our agenda, we are suspending that. Stephen has made a motion. I would need a second.
64, not 67.
0164, which
0164.
designates our agenda format, but since we're moving to a new format, that doesn't apply.
Right.
We'll have to make changes.
I'll
So
second it.
suspend that and incorporate the changes as
Correct.
indicated.
So Kim, you're seconding?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any discussion?
Yes, and this is just until next month?
This is until, obviously, the policy committee, or I see it's on the discussion items for the work session in terms of what the new agenda should look like.
Okay.
Right.
So it looks like we'll have to construct a new agenda structure for that policy, given our new way of
And is this
operating.
something that maybe could be discussed under the workshop session, and we could go ahead and address
I
the
have it,
addition?
yep, I have it
It's
in there
already on
already.
there.
And then we'll adjust it for next
Yes.
month and confirm it.
Thank you, Stephen. And Steve, what do we need? We need roll call vote?
We can do a voice vote on this. We all set? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?
Abstain.
Okay, motion carries.
Great. So now, do we have an approval of the agenda or not, Steve?
That was the motion.
Okay,
You
all right.
suspended and approved the agenda at the same time.
Okay, awesome. All right, number 6 on the agenda is approval of the minutes. Can I have a motion for approval?
Motion?
Second.
Okay, any discussion?
Yes, I haven't had a chance to take a look at the executive minutes from, or in its entirety, I should say, from June 4th, because it just appeared, I don't know when it appeared, but it certainly was after I sat down for tonight. So, I don't know how we want to handle this. I guess I'll just abstain.
Abstain
At this
from
point,
those then. Yes.
No.
No, it was a repeat.
It was what?
They were
They were both
both
June
13th.
Yeah.
So,
There was an error made, they were both for,
is this something then maybe that should be
Table?
tabled and put on the agenda for next month? Yes,
We just
exactly.
approved it.
No, we can
Yes,
continue.
you
could make a motion to table.
Well, that's my question.
Yes,
That
you
would
can make
give
a
all of
motion to
us
table
and
it
for
if they
some
feel you need
time to take a look. I mean, I probably isn't that long anyway, but at least give us all some time to look at it.
did all of you have the same difficulty, that you were not able to read the change? Because it was just made earlier today.
2 sentences.
Is that how long it is?
I'm
Not the
looking at it.
third one,
Yeah.
the second.
2 sentences.
And he's taking notes.
Yeah, let's take a moment, please, since it is so brief, so we're not tabling something else.
Oh, I'm sorry.
The fourth, yeah, the fourth. Yeah,
Not the other one.
right, the other one was correct.
I thought-
Yeah, the other one was there.
The other ones were out.
Yeah.
Good.
I'm good.
Yes.
Everybody good?
Yep.
Yay.
Okay, any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion passed. Sorry.
Okay, report of the superintendent. Dr. McCooley?
Okay. A, B, C, and D, you have hyperlinked to monthly student attendance, discipline, and security drills. And then for D, I have a couple items. I just want to recap, our board retreat went very well. Thank you once again for the board for participating. We've had great feedback from board members and from the administrative team. They really enjoyed it. So we will definitely have other things similar to that, but we will schedule a mid-year review of our goals and then an end of the year, of course, with that group again. So once again, thank you. That was a great time. I know that I just want to mention, I know Mr. Fabricki is watching our policies and making sure that we're in line. The one that he did refer to recently in terms of our goal setting for the board says June 30th. I'm going to ask that next month we do look at that policy and perhaps change that, because the state has really changed everything to having our administrative, our SGOs, our district goals, our administrative goals due by October 30th. So maybe we would push that back a little bit for the board too. So it gives us the summer to look at data and work together and form those goals. So that's something I'm going to be suggesting for next month's policy. The administrative team has already used those goals, and we're going to start planning our summer and our school year. We have a meeting tomorrow to start looking at that. On-Course was in today, and the team was very excited with some of the features that they have now, and we've added to look at data and to track data and to make sure that we're meeting our goals throughout the year. We are going to be revisiting the attendance requirements, as we have talked about briefly. And as we as an administrative team start working on that, we will update the board and then of course convey that to the parents and the students. So we have our administrative team meeting tomorrow. The board is always welcome to sit in on that if you'd like to. Just always shoot me an email or text and I can invite you to that. The website for donations, I want to remind you, is up. The James Bond did a great job creating that for us. It's on our district website under the tab that says About Us. If you click that, it's way at the bottom. It says Wish List. So as a district, whoever works here, if they need something, they can put it on there. And then if someone in the community has something to donate, they can as well. And Mr. Fabricki's our first one, filled out some donor information to donate a piano. So check that out when you get a chance. The last thing is just reminding you once again, I know I sound like a broken record about school boards convention. There's great workshops. I also extended that to the administrative team to look at and see if there's things they would like to attend. As long as there's people left here and we can kind of tier that, I'd like them to come. I'd like you to come if you can, and we can spend some time together and have some fun as well. And Mr. Brennan had told me that everyone is registered, everyone meaning our spots. The board is registered, and then administratively we'll organize that accordingly. And that's all I have for my update.
Any questions? Thank you, Dr. McCooley. We're going to move on to presentations, and Mr. Moore is here from Epic Management. So the floor is yours,
Thank you.
Brian.
Thank you for inviting me. As you can tell, we've been really busy for the past month. School ended on the 22nd. The senior school was emptied on the 30th, and the projects that we have going on, just a quick summary. Junior high school, we have a roof that's has a section to complete. They commenced on the 12th of this month, and they'll be done by August 3rd. And that means the whole roof of the junior high school will be complete. Driving up, you can tell the modular complex is going very well. Right now is the construction fencing is going to come down by the end of this week. Sidewalks are going to go in next week. We're targeting to commence township inspections around August 6th. So we should be within the target time to have it ready for school opening. Athletic field complex and tennis courts. If you look at the pictures, the track event stations have been finished. Fencing's going up, we're prepping the field, and it's going very timely over in that section. The tennis courts, basically we have the fence posts up, base coat of the asphalt is ready, and asphalt is being laid tomorrow and Friday. With the track and the field work and the tennis, we're targeting completion at the end of September. Now, usage might not be exactly at the end of September due to a few factors. One is the curing time for the tennis courts and the track, and probably the long lead item is the routing or the the routing of the sod for the football field. So that's gonna be a little bit challenging. One thing that you really noticed was in the senior high school, we have started the masonry restoration evaluation, which basically means that we're taking down the brick facade so the structural engineer can look at, evaluate, and see what has to be done per the plan since we've done probes there before. So that's gonna continue. Shortly after, we'll probably start working on some redoing the masonry and such. The last item I have is the interior renovations. Right now, we're doing the evaluating of the ceiling areas and the interior occupied areas so we can figure out the ductwork, measurements, and start planning for the installation on that. One item that we did held on for the summer work, which was part of the scope, and it's gonna be rescheduled, is we were planning to try to do 4 bathrooms in the junior high during the summer on the 2nd floor. Contracts were only awarded at the beginning of June, and we're not able to obtain the quality of the material that we got spec'd to do the bathroom renovations, items of tile and partitions. So right now, we've pushed any work. We're gonna be looking at phasing certain work on 2nd shift, still maintaining the schedule. And that's what we got going on right at the present time.
You guys have questions?
So the bathrooms, it's just that stuff was late, so your second shift, it's gonna still be done August 6th or 13th or whatever the date was, that's your.
No. It'll be done by the end of the school time, September 2019.
Oh, that's what.
Right now is the bathrooms that they had non-functional, they're gonna be functional, so they will have enough bathrooms and such. And basically, the goal was not to disturb an opening. And that was taken upon the group as a team, the district and the construction, to rework the schedule for those items.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Everything went well with the power shutdown on the Friday, the transfer of power and all that. It
Yep,
looks
we
good.
went,
It's all up.
yeah, what we did was we had a mini shutdown on Friday, which was scheduled, that we shut down the building, redid the electrical switchgear to accommodate the trailers and the new HVAC units when they come up online after the trailers are removed. And that was on Friday. We got started at 8, we were done by 2:30.
Anything else?
Yeah, I think I heard you say that for the tennis courts, the asphalt's being laid, but because of curing time, it
Curing
won't be
time,
available till late September?
it's basically, the asphalt is the part, but there's a tennis coat finish,
Right?
which goes on top of it, which is like a certain finish. That's not gonna be laid right after the asphalt, because the asphalt has to cure,
Gotcha.
and then they do the finish on top of it.
Okay, so my question for the construction committee and or superintendent, if we could follow up by late September, I mean, girls' tennis season is well underway. I don't know if we have plans for that, if we could start to think about that impact.
Okay, thanks, Drew.
I do know early on there was talk of alternative places for that to occur until, because the base coat has to flash off, then the top coat has to flash off. And I know that they were talking about alternative places to accommodate that.
That's really, I think, Will's department, and
Yep.
Yeah.
if you don't mind, Will, we've,
Oh, he's here.
I hate to put you on the spot.
He's
He knows we
here. I
talked.
didn't see
But
that.
Will's been at all the
Yeah,
meetings anyway,
okay.
so we have thoughts in place to take care of that if it becomes an issue.
Right now, they're at Ocean County, Tipsy Park.
Tipsy,
We already have permission to
Good.
use there for daily for plant their summer practices. We're gonna continue that. Running the issues, we just have to work with our opponents and reschedule or flip some game sites.
Right,
We can
okay.
go home and then come away later.
Yeah, good.
We'll get it
Right,
done.
right, thank you, Will. Any other questions for Brian? Brian, and I'll speak for the whole board and the audience, Tommy's been much better than I, but, you know, we have been going to the meetings. I want to thank Brian and his team for everything they have done. Very professional, on top of things, anytime I've asked a question, most of which, sorry, are stupid, because I don't get it, he's got the answer, it's clear. Thank you very much.
Basically, it's a learning environment. You
Well,
know,
see
and
you
that's
There's a
tomorrow
big learning curve
It's a
there for
big-
me.
It's better to understand what's going on and then just go in, quiet.
Right,
So,
I got it.
the team is working between the design, the construction, and the district. It's been an excellent team.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, but thank you very much.
Okay.
And you really don't have to stay. Thank you.
Thank you.
We can start early for tomorrow.
Yeah.
It's a second shift.
Okay, moving on to B, which is a finance update, and from Mr. Brennan, you received the purchasing manual, which we did approve, I can't remember, it wasn't too long ago. April, is that when it was?
Yes.
And the referendum spreadsheet. So, I know we sent questions in, if your questions were not answered, and you have additional questions or clarifying questions, now would be the time. Go ahead, Karen.
So I would just like to request, not for tonight obviously, but one of our board goals from last year was we were looking to get monthly updates, and while we did get that from our professionals, one piece of the update was the numbers end of it. Would it be possible for the board to get a summary? And I know there was some numbers put out there, but what I'm looking for is, like by project, what the referendum number was, what the bid came in at, and then what we actually paid. I think there were some numbers with comparison of actual cost to the bid. I think our baseline is almost doing a referendum, that's what we have to track to. So is that something you would be able to compile?
Yeah, I've compiled it already, and I shared a spreadsheet with the board, keeping in mind it's a constant working process. That's what I use to track the finances of the project. $53 million is a lot of money, and you're awarding it at $40 million at a time. You really want to be on top of it. So that's really my go-to document, and I also use Epic to compare. So really, we've just went through a whirlwind of bids, specs, bids, awards, and payments throughout the last 6 months at least. So Epic and I are going to be sitting down and finalize that to make sure that we have everything covered. If you look in that spreadsheet, it's going to be difficult to draw a parallel at this point between what we had in our referendum as budgeted, this item versus this item, because in the last 6 months, it's changed dramatically. The phasing has caused, for example, we bid the junior high and the high school together, whereas in the referendum it was separate. So it's kind of difficult to pull that apart. So if you look at the cover sheet of that spreadsheet, it jives out and says, okay, we have $53 million in bond proceeds, we spent out this much, we've awarded this much in contracts, so we have this much left, so to speak. Keeping in mind, some of the items that we haven't awarded yet, like the site work, is going to be a couple $1 million project. There's just an estimate in there. And there was estimates in for moving. There's a few other things that we just discussed today for the TCUs that we need to take care of. Security system, for example, we just got that finalized. So like I said, if you go to that spreadsheet, that's kind of like the Bible of what we use. So you can look at exactly, okay, where we're at any specific point in time. Try to keep it updated with the payments as we hit a bills list. And then you'll see where we stand overall between the $53 million and where we're at as far as progress so far.
So do you have any, based on your analysis, do you have any concerns of where we are with this point in time in the project, or anything that we should?
The concern, and if Brian's still here, that we spoke about is our site work has been delayed till next year. We've all been experiencing increase in petroleum prices, so that's obviously going to have a big impact on that one because it's entirely petroleum-based. So that's really the only concern that we have. But we should know that within the next 6 months because we're going to be putting it out to bid. So we're kind of structuring it with alternates to create that flexibility should funds not cover. But based on what our projections are so far, we seem to be right in line with where we need to be. But again, we have to go back. A lot has happened. We have to audit to make sure they're all in there. Some of the costs that we have as far as the trailers, which we didn't anticipate. Some of the split session costs that we didn't anticipate. So we just need to get.
That would be my question, like, well then, where's that coming from? And how does that leave us? And I asked you a ton of questions, and then I came back and asked additional questions because, again, finances and spreadsheets certainly are not my thing. But I think if I'm understanding what Karen said, you know, if we bid the high school roof and the junior high school roof together, and let's go throw a number out there, say that the total together was, the contract price of both was 15 million, but in the referendum, we only estimated 12 million. Where did the additional 3 come from? And how is that going to affect the rest of the project? And I think my overall concern was getting to the end or towards the end as we complete each part of these projects. And because we have had surprises that we've had to take care of, the temporary classrooms, etc., is that going to get to the point where we're going to have to make a decision as to, wait a minute, we had $53 million and we're going to be short and such and such and such and such is going to have to be put on hold. And that's I don't want to get to the end and have to make some instant decision or kind of feel blindsided that something needs to be put into place and we scramble.
90% of our projects are set contracts. So
Okay.
we have about 2 million, let's say, for argument's sake, let's say 3 to 4 million still out there that we can bid. And we have that estimated in those spreadsheets, and we're still under the $53 million. So basically, everything that we have in our scope is there, up to 90%. If anything occurs during these projects, well, that's a whole other story. We got to go back to the drawing board. But as we stand now, it looks like we're kind of in line with where we need to be. But also, again, we're depending on some estimates.
And they could change.
We've been lucky because they've been favorable. They've been in our favor when
Right.
the bids came out.
Right.
Maybe not so much when the site work comes out. But
Right.
I think right now, what we need to do is, now that things have settled down, I need to sit with Epic. Coincidentally, our auditors are coming in too. So I think between the two of them, we're going to have a pretty solid figure of where we stand before we bid the final phase of the project. Barring any other surprise.
And then maybe some of the alternates will have to change based on where we're at, but all the site work is fuel, petroleum-based products, so.
But that was higher than a couple years ago.
It went up, then it came down.
Yeah, I mean,
It is definitely back up.
Still
Right.
not as up as it was though, that's all I'm thinking. I mean, don't you kind of just take what the extras are and add those up and make sure that they're not more than, I think that's kind of what it is.
Well, that's why you do the alternates.
Okay,
You have,
good.
you kind of go all the way down as close as you can, and then you put some, you don't want to do too many because from what I understand, it kind of spooks the bidders, but that way it gives you the options, more of a cafeteria approach. You say, okay, you know what, let's take that. And you kind of saw that with how we did the 2 really big projects. We had a lot of alternates in there as far as the fire alarm system in the junior high, and how complex that was. Either we can replace it fully, we can replace it partially, or not at all. So those are the types of things that we ended up going halfway between to make sure that we had a solid fire alarm in here. So, so far, we haven't seen any negatives. We haven't been over budget on anything. Everything's pretty much either on target or a little bit less. It's just that I haven't quite got to the level of, I can tell you 100% we're good to go with all the changes that are on, because we still need to get together and say, do we capture all the costs that we didn't anticipate yet? So we think we have, but we just really got to focus on it specifically.
Can I ask a totally separate question? My thing is, we read these reports and we read your bills listed, but the difference between the board secretary report and the other report, it's not like I see numbers like that every day. I guess I'm wondering, is there like 20 minutes that you could take with us to go? Like, to me, sometimes some of the individual things look really low, like the maintenance thing is $461, but I don't know how that relates, because I know you have all these accounts, so there's a way to me that some of the numbers just on their own are scary. I guess it's the board secretary report, so I guess I was just wondering if that could be something, for people who don't see it every day, like this one over here. And I mean, I see, I do my taxes, that's it.
It's
I
not
don't
an
even do
easy,
that.
it's not an easy report to interpret.
Yeah,
We
I mean,
talk to
it's a
any
monthly
accountant,
report.
it's pretty complicated. because it's based on programs rather than most of us are used to seeing salaries, utilities, and that type of income and expenses. Here we have instruction, we have special education, which involves all that other stuff. So we could definitely take some time. We'll set it up in a future meeting, how you want to do it, and we can do that.
I
And
mean,
then we
then,
have
I don't know if the rest of the board.
Well, I certainly could use every bit of knowledge necessary. The other questions that were sent, Stephen, I know, like, you've gotten very busy. Are you gonna get to those? Because there were other questions on there, on the list that I sent in that weren't answered.
I believe before we left today that I answered everything.
Okay,
that
I did not get a chance later this afternoon.
It ran right up to probably about 3 o'clock today.
Oh, I did not have the opportunity
If
to
there's
look
others there, I
later.
haven't seen them, but they should all
Okay.
be in that.
All right, my only other question is regarding, the purchasing manual. I see a disconnect with what I think are our habits and what occurs. I mean, are we really following that?
Yes, I mean, it should be. And in what respect are you referring to?
Well, one of my concerns, was the recent issue that we spoke about regarding the vendor, and the vendor supposedly worked within the school. According to the purchasing manual, unless I am totally misinterpreting it, that would not be allowed, legally or ethically. So, that was one of my concerns.
The conflicts of interest that we know about, we all fill out those ethics statements, and we list on there, it asks you, are you contracted with a party to anything in the district? Are you involved with anything in the district? And that's just limited to basically administrators and board members. So once we get past there, we really have no knowledge of who is related to who. So from my perspective, when a purchase is made, I go back and I look at the purchasing regulations. Do you have your business registration certificate? Do you have your W-9? Do you have your quotes if it's over certain thresholds? So if all the paperwork is met, that's satisfactory to me.
Right.
To really dive into knowing from a purchasing perspective a conflict of interest, it's almost like kind of the honor system. You should be able to report that. For example, if I was owner of a business, I would be foolish to contract with the business that I'm in. That would be a direct conflict.
Right, right. No, and I get that.
But keep in mind, the purchase, the authority of the purchase really lies with the purchasing agent, which is me. So when the purchase order goes through, the requisition is generated by usually the supervisory level, the principal level. It goes up to the superintendent, who she'll approve it. And it says to me, okay, it's educationally sound, it's educationally adequate. Now it's my job to approve it. The funds are there.
Right.
So once all that kind of runs through the system, it's good to go as far as we're concerned. So we wouldn't necessarily know if a teacher,
Right.
high school teacher
But
is.
Mike, doesn't that put you in a bad position, though, if that's not disclosed, if it should happen?
I don't think so. I've never
Okay.
seen a purchasing conflict of interest,
Okay.
other than at the higher
Somebody being
level.
hung for that.
Because the conflict of interest is me making the purchase.
Right, okay.
If I'm not in conflict, or the board isn't approving something in conflict of interest, like a contract with the construction contract company, if you were the owner of a construction company, you really could be on the agenda.
Right.
So those types of things.
Right.
Or we- this is the other stuff. But
Right.
Those are really the only things, it's really more of a paperwork driven type of thing.
Right.
And when you boil down to the smaller purchases, it's difficult to kind of monitor that. And speaking with Melissa, we thought maybe to bring that to the attention of some of our employees. We'll put a memo out saying, it's upon yourself to exercise some ethics and look at the appearance. Well, it may not be a direct conflict of interest legal-wise, but a perception problem might occur. Keep in mind that you should be doing business with.
Well, and that was my concern, that it would put, you're not aware, but it would put you in a bad position if you weren't told that
Not
up
knowing.
front.
Yeah, you could look at our vendor list. I don't know everyone's relationship to who's on that vendor list. But I
Okay.
think what we'll do is at the start of the year, when we do, because this purchasing manual is, we'll say, generally given out at the beginning of the year, but it's really, we do a training with our new staff. Continuing staff, we just kind of do it ongoing if they need
Right.
it. And we refer back and forth to the purchasing manual. Now it's online, so what we could do is, we'll start fresh, we'll include a little cover memo saying, keep this on top of your mind, that it may not be appropriate. Well, it may be okay, and legal-wise, it may not be appropriate for the district.
Right, okay.
I put it on the agenda for tomorrow's admin meeting too. So
Okay,
I can go over
alright,
with the administrators,
alright.
because they're really the tier 1 too that need to know.
Right.
If they're the level 1 approver, they need to know what's happening in their building. And then they can turnkey that, to their staff with the memo that comes out from Steve.
Does our staff have access to the purchasing manual? We do?
Is it on the website? It's on the drive.
It's on our
that's for
website.
us.
Generally, we speak with the secretaries, and we train them because they're actually entering the purchase orders and dealing with the purchasing portion of it. So, do the staff have access to it? I'd say yes. But the people who really know about it are probably the secretaries and the supervisors.
Now, are we talking there, because there was another aspect regarding, like before somebody submits something to you, whether it be a field trip or a purchase they want to make, et cetera, they're supposed to be aware of what's in their budget, that the money is available there for them. But do they actually have access to Systems 3000?
At the supervisory level, they do. That's where the input occurs.
Okay, so they have to go to their supervisor then, and then their supervisor checks to make sure that it's there, okay?
Well, the supervisor has to approve the trip, but a suggestion or recommendation would be all the supervisors have to approve these POs through their departments. That
Well, they
there is
do that, right?
There is a recognition and a sign-off on the purchasing manual.
Right, okay.
Amy, can you weigh in on this at all? Is that pretty normal that the teachers don't sort of fall under the, I mean, I know it's.
They do
I
fall
know
under.
it's, do you know what I mean, like, is there a separate ethics rule for something like that?
Well, I think what Steve's talking about is what we talked about at the last meeting, which was legally, when you're talking about the conflict of interest, it's with the business administrator, with board members, those individuals that fill out those financial disclosure sheets.
Right.
So you might not know that a teacher in your district's parent owns a particular company, that they might not have any controlling interest in or anything like that, but there's a perception concern. So what I think you have two things going on. I think there's a lot of great suggestions to bring it to your admin, to
Right.
provide new, fresh training to everybody, to give them a reminder, and to make sure it goes out to the staff about the reminder of public perception problems, as number one. And number two, if it is available online, let people know online what those things are. As Steve indicated though, most times the individuals doing the request for purchases, and correct me if I'm wrong, are necessarily individual teachers. Maybe they're activity advisors or coaches or supervisors or principals. So those are the people you really want to focus on and make sure that they understand what's going on. And I agree, I like Tommy's idea too, to have almost a sign-off page that yes, you sign off that each year, you receive this and you're aware of it.
We have a little bit of a different manual for our coaches and advisors because they have more going on in that area. So to bombard them with the purchasing manual, it's a lot of information, probably too much to expect of them to know. Not that we would help them through it, but we kind of give a little pared down version because they also do fundraising things that create issues. So in that they get each year, they are provided that through whoever the advisor supervisor is, and they go over the good, the bad, and the ugly of what's expected of an
That's good to
advisor
know.
because they need to bring forth what their fundraiser is, one, so they don't conflict, and one, it's legit, and their purchases, so that we can monitor what's going in and going out. Because it's actually student funds, it's student-raised, student-used funds. It's not something that we should be buying textbooks with. That's not what students, unless that's what that group says that's what they're raising it for. But it's generally, t-shirt sales for trips.
But
Jackets.
isn't there an admin that's in charge of looking at that? If they're going to be purchasing items or?
And we do have an authorization of that. There is a check request process, but there's also a fundraiser request process that it gets approved. And that's all encompassed in that advisor, that student.
I didn't know that, that's good to know, that that's there.
Now, do we handle all of Bass River's purchasing as well?
Yes. Obviously, our superintendent isn't approving Bass Richards.
Right.
They're just in the system and they go through the same process.
Because we're sharing, okay.
Any other questions?
When some of our larger bids come in, and I think it was one of my questions, I know they are dated, but they are time-stamped, is that correct? So in other words, you could get 2 bids that would come in at one time in the same day, but they are time-stamped as far as that actual time that they are open.
Well, the bid's a result of a public advertisement that we put forth, and in that bid, it says, you were to submit the bid, sealed, labeled, on or before a certain
Right.
date and time, and we open them all at the same time. And what happens is, we stamp when they're received, and then we hold them. And then what we do is we hold a public opening of all the bids, so anybody can show up, generally the contractors. And you open envelope 1, contractor A, you bid this on this product, this on this product, this on this product. Open 2, contract B, and then what happens is we review through how we do the contracts, and then we award it to the lowest responsible bidder.
Any other questions? All right, then, let's move on to the work session portion. Board goals. We agreed at our retreat that we would come up with 2 board goals that would support our district goals. How do you want to handle that, Melissa? Do you want input put in to you?
I think maybe we should wait until we have our training from Amy.
Okay,
And in terms of the board and governance and the roles and that check and balance. And we may have one board goal that comes out that really encompasses the work of the board. And then another one would be supporting the district goals. So
okay.
I think that would be most effective, but I think we should wait to have that training with Amy.
Y'all agree?
And I'm
Let's
sorry,
get
what was
the
second?
governance ethics training.
The second one would support those district goals that we
Okay.
formed at the retreat.
And then one for us in particular, for self-improvement. Okay. Board agenda format, we did suspend, policy 0164 for this evening. So, do we wanna handle this now as to how we're gonna move forward at our next meeting?
And based on that policy, it seems as all we need to do is replace number 7 and put work session in there. So then we can have anything under the work session that the board would like. So as that, the agenda goes out, if you want to add something to the work session, feel free to add it and we can discuss it then.
Oh, great.
You're saying 7 on the current agenda for tonight?
7 on the
All
policy.
on the policy,
On the policy.
right.
So anything.
Yeah, because we just did this not too long ago.
Yeah, the policy's fine, it's just we just need to add the work session on there.
So if that's all that needs to be added, we could put it on for
Next month.
Everybody good with that?
So you mean put it, the policy on the agenda to.
Yes,
To approve.
yes.
Only needs one reading because it's a minor change.
Yep.
Right.
You good with that,
Correct,
Stephen?
Amy?
Yes,
Okay.
correct.
Number 7, all right, great,
And can I just discuss the Q&A on that, on line B there?
sure.
The question and answer, so as we did this month, the board agenda was posted as a Google Doc. And then the board members can add, the format was added to the Google Doc. And then you can add any questions that you want in terms of items that are on the agenda. And we've established those deadlines of when your questions, when the board agenda is gonna go out, when your questions are answered by. I just want to ensure that when you're asking a question, it's for clarification on an agenda item. So I don't understand why this item's on here. Can you tell me where this person came from? Something like that. It's not a forum for discussion on your opinions of how we should be doing hiring, how we should be doing something else. That's for the board work session. So if there's an issue of something that's happening in the district or the way that something's being run, put the item on the work session agenda and we can discuss it as a board. But that forum is really not to place some concerns that you have with the district. It's for clarification of things on the agenda.
It's not
But
for
if it's
asking if we're
for-
following policy with a hire or
No,
something
that's
going on.
fine, right, if there's hires on there, did they go through the hiring process? Yes. However, it's not for, I have a problem with the hiring process because that's something that we would talk about as a board.
But for additional information or more clarification
Yes.
on a specific agenda
Absolutely.
topic.
Yes,
That's what it's for.
absolutely.
Now, if some board member posts a question, let's say, and you answer it, or Steve answers it, or however it works. And if we have additional questions on that, do you want us to put it on the actual document itself, or hit the plus at the end where you hit and the comments box comes up, that you would ask?
I would
it
say
there?
right on the agenda, like right
Okay.
underneath there, so everyone, then if Karen goes on, she can see that
Okay.
that question was already answered.
Okay.
Okay, you said a timeline has been set. What specifically is that timeline?
That was emailed out. There was a chart of when the board meeting date is, when the agenda was gonna be posted out, and then when the questions are being answered every day as they come in, up until the board meeting.
Right, I guess that was the piece I wasn't sure. I know I gave my questions, I forget if it was Sunday or Monday. Is there a date for board member questions?
You can, as soon as it goes out, start asking, because then I can get to them and start answering them.
Okay.
I appreciate that, Melissa, because obviously I was not clear, and instead of questions, I gave my comments to certain things, which I can see is problematic. My only concern is if I have no question about a particular item, but yet I'm vehemently opposed to that item on the agenda, by not expressing those previous to you, might I be blindsiding you come the meeting, where you're not expecting this level of opposition to an agenda item. I don't have any questions, and I don't need any information. I'm just totally opposed to that item, but I'm not to share that with you until the night of the meeting. Is that going to be problematic in terms of blindsiding?
If you have a particular issue with a procedure, let's take, for example, the hiring process and what's behind that. That really should be brought up during board forum so we can discuss that. What are your concerns? What is the procedure? And then if that's not the procedure that the board wants to follow, then we talk about it at that point.
But I think what Stephen is saying is, he doesn't want to not send it to you as part of the questions, because then, just to bring it to the board and not notify you first, you've got kind of blindsided regarding it. So, where is he supposed to, okay, note to you that I have a concern about this, can it be discussed?
I would say email me at first. And then if it's something that is a question or clarification that the entire board should see, we can post it on the Google Doc. But if it's something that you have a particular concern with individually, either call me, you stop in, or email it, and then we can
So
go
you
from
would still
there.
appreciate an email that
Absolutely.
indicates item agenda B7.
Sure.
I will not vote for this, and here are my reasons. You would
Right.
still would like to see
Yes,
that ahead of
absolutely,
time. Okay.
absolutely.
I think we ought to talk about this when we have our
Yes,
little retreat,
Yeah.
yes,
for clarity.
yes.
Thank you.
But we would normally do that anyway. Any questions, we would send them to the board president, and it would be shared with the superintendent. So to just clarify what we're doing going forward,
Mhm.
I certainly understand Stephen's question, but it's certainly clear past practice that we go through that chain anyway.
Sure.
Right, but I generally would not say, I'm not gonna support this, right? I gather my
You can
information,
send any email you
and then
want to the
it's
board
mine.
president or the
Yeah.
superintendent.
No, I'm saying
I think
as
we have.
a board, right, we're gathering information and then we're voting at the meeting.
Yes,
We're not voting before.
right.
Okay, everybody good with that? All right, good, policy committee. Pat, you have, or Melissa, you got,
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Oh, actually, and it was something I addressed with Melissa on how we want to move forward with this, because we haven't had a meeting, since the transition has occurred. And I asked Melissa how she handled it at Little Egg, and she explained to me that what they do for mandated policies, it's done in the board of the whole or during the workshop session, because most of it is revisions, usually it's mandated language and whatnot. I was perfectly comfortable with that. As far as any other policies that are just Pinelands, unique to Pinelands, that would, I'm sure, be a different story, but it's certainly something that could be discussed during our workshop session. I'm happy with that because I think it would eliminate a lot of unnecessary meeting time, because it's gotten out of hand in the past. So if anyone has an opposition to that or doesn't like that, moving forward, we can certainly talk about it further. Lois, did you want to add?
Yeah, so really, we hire Strauss Esme to manage a lot of our policies. So what they do is they send us via email if anything is changed mandated wise that we have to update our policies. So that's one tier. Then the other tier is really as things come up. So if we are changing our attendance policy, obviously that has to be on the work session. So whatever changes are suggested, the board can see and whether say yes or no, and then we can adopt or change that policy. Mr. Kabricki has given me a list of some policies that he has concern with. So what I said was, that's great, make some notes, and then we could, little by little put them on the agenda so the board can see them during the work session and give their feedback as well.
So I guess, Pat, you did such a good job, both of you guys, because we didn't really have policies for a long time. So you feel like we're,
Regulations,
We have
so you feel like we're caught up on all that.
Well, as far as the alerts, there are numerous alerts that have come through that we are behind on that have to be caught up as far as revisions mandated.
Okay.
But they would be easily done a little bit at a time,
Right.
chunked on our
Right.
workshop agenda, and if you just take a look at what, if you can put it in red, I
Sure,
guess,
yeah.
what the mandated language is, so we can see what the change is.
And in
That's
most
really-
cases, when a new alert comes up, many times it doesn't really have anything to do other than they changed the language.
Or the
And it's the
pronoun.
law now, so, we don't have, it's not like we have a choice.
And what about
That's the law.
regulations? What about?
Well, they're the
They
same
come
way,
through
some
the
of
same
them
way.
are
They
just
come with
following
them
the
now.
law.
They come with them now, we don't have
They
to pay
come
for them.
through too.
But when the
Uh,
policy committee first started, we were well
Yeah.
behind
Yes.
with our Pineland specific policies.
That was
Are
my,
you comfortable that we're
Yes.
caught up and that going forward?
I am comfortable, we have
can-
gone through a lot, all the regulations, we
Yeah.
have, we didn't have, and everything's been turned on for the staff.
Okay,
And also the public can go onto our
great. Okay.
board policies and whatnot. So I'm happy, I really am, with the progress that we've made. It was a lot of time, it was a lot of work. Dr. Banks was instrumental in getting it started and getting the ball rolling. Cheryl was also a big help in continuing that and helping us. But I really do like Melissa's suggestion. I think it would be helpful. Like I said, I know there's some alerts on there that I think we need to get on, and
Sure.
maybe get on for maybe August, a little bit at a time,
Right.
August, September. But it's gonna mean that you guys are gonna have to take a look at it, and if it's in red, then you'll see where the changes are.
Yeah.
Stephen, if you could somehow put together, I saw the list that you drafted, if you could give us, send a one-liner on what your concern is. I don't know if it's one paragraph, one sentence,
What I will
particular
do,
language.
again, they're not concerned about the policy itself, they're concerned about that we're not following the policy. So what I will do is print out those policies, I will highlight those sections which I don't think that we're following in it, and, gradually bring them up and discuss whether we are following them. Because again, having policy is important, but equally important is making sure we follow the policy.
True, and I think a lot is in the interpretation as well.
Yes.
So if you highlight that section, sentence, paragraph, I think it'll help, and then it can be discussed and we can bring it back for further board discussion.
Pat, my only question was, I know we had gotten through the majority of it, did you finally complete going through the policy manual, the last couple of sections to ensure the old stuff was out?
Right, we were up to the 8,000 and 9,000
Yes.
series. Okay, we haven't finished all of the 9,000 series, but I'll be honest with you, the alerts are coming through on a lot of them.
Okay.
In fact, some of the ones that we tackled when you were still on the committee, they've sent through additional alerts to change it. It's just a never-ending process, so.
Well, that's good, because I know we got through the majority of it, because there was still some antiquated and outdated and not in statute things.
I'm gonna be honest with you, in looking at other school districts' policy manuals,
We're okay.
I think we're okay, because, I'm not gonna mention any names, but I mean, some of them have policies that haven't been updated since 2008, 2005. And not because it's antiquated, there's just no additional language that needs to be
Right.
revised according to Strauss Esme, so it doesn't mean that it's obsolete, per se. Does that answer your question?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, moving on to adult school. I think that there needs to be, I guess, a discussion as to where we're going with this. Dr. McCauley did speak to Pat and I regarding, the numbers and where our numbers fall and, have they been steady, have they been going up, have they been going down? Unfortunately, I think in most cases, they have been going down. our previous supervisor of the adult school, is retiring, and, that would leave the position open. There was some thought regarding, because I know that one of the most important or most well-loved, was Mr. Luby's, workshop, you know, on woodworking. Whether you as a board want to kind of stay it for a year, allow some new ideas, et cetera, to be generated, whether you want to just push forward, keep it going, because many of the courses were held in the high school.
My question is, do we have space in this building to accommodate the programs, or I would imagine that that would have to be reviewed and evaluated, and there may need to be some changes.
Well, it's after hours, so, I mean, there would be space. We had one applicant for the position, and he and I had spoke, and we went over the current numbers and some of the offerings. And if the program does stay, he does have some ideas of how to improve it. We have something similar in Little Light, but it is geared towards a different population. So the manner in which she over there has grown her program is just through surveys and seeing interest of the community. So there are some good ideas of how to expand the program. It's just as Sue said, we're limited this year to the junior high. So do you want to try to expand it and see how it goes? Do you want to put it on hold for a year?
Well, do we need to take a look at maybe what you're doing in Little Light, what they're doing up the road 7 miles?
Right.
And maybe send out the surveys, some type of climate survey to the community, to the staff, and even to students to see what things they'd like to see
Right.
generated.
I mean, it's a minimal amount of money.
Yeah, it's very little.
And really, if we could, give it a shot and see if it can be improved for this year. Some of the courses are good that even for the students. So,
Yeah, SAT prep classes.
I think
know
the
at one
surveys
point
are-
were being offered.
yeah, the surveys are essential. What is the need? And then that should drive the program.
And Tess has all of that.
Yes. And
That's awesome.
Yep,
Then.
she does a great job.
And is
Barbara,
that something that could be put right on our website so everyone?
Yep, absolutely.
the other thing is, can we accommodate the offerings here? Now, Mr. Luby stuff, how much can a back and really be done?
But we
Well,
do have
that's
a-
where we might have to, alter.
Right.
And that's your big numbers,
Right.
so what are we doing here?
So that was my question, we might have to, I guess, tailor for next year anyway, what we offer.
But I can't see that we would want to suspend it for a year just because we can't offer that one
No,
program.
I'm not saying
Yeah.
that.
I mean, I think we should eventually be able to get back to the point where we can offer that class.
I think this year would make a good planning year as you're building it so that you can look at, like Pat said, 7 miles up the road, which schools in New Jersey have very, very successful adult education programs. Do they make money? What do they offer? So this could be like a transition kind of year where you're still offering things,
building.
but still looking and investigating and research so you can build a really top-notch program.
Sure.
I just personally think it would be good to take a year to kind of reevaluate things and to see where we can make improvements. But, I mean, that's only my opinion. And if we do that and it coincides maybe with the opening of the high school next year, it also coincides with our 40th anniversary. And I think that would be a great way to bring the community back into this district. It's just my opinion.
Who's gonna do it?
Who's gonna do what?
Who would do that? Are you saying not have it, are you saying yes to doing it?
No, I
Because
think we should take a year off and reevaluate possibly. Take a look at what we would want to start new, what the interest is from our community, our students, and maybe when we get back into the high school, that whole program life is brought back into it. That's just how I'm thinking.
So is there a reason why we couldn't do that and
And
still
that's what I
run
thought we were
some
talking about
classes
going forward.
this year?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, is there, that was just my opinion. I mean, if there are some classes that
Right, could
some,
we run
the
here
community
this
would
year?
like, and we can run it,
I would say a good compromise is if we continue it for this year, we start planning for next year, but then those classes that have to be eliminated because we're not at the high school are replaced with something. And that's where the surveys would come in. Survey your students, survey your parents, and see what the need is. And then develop the courses around there based on what we can offer here structurally.
I think things like SAT prep, those kind of things are important to be able to offer our students locally. I hate to see that being rolled.
We, I can't answer the question, do we have a GED program? Because I know that was one of the things that our our kids were, having to travel 7 miles, 10 miles up the road to get, because we didn't offer it here.
I thought they were online now. I thought it was all online. You didn't have to worry about going.
Well, that's good for some kids,
Yeah,
but
we
not
can look
all.
into that too, and even if they came here and logged in and
And
had
logged
someone
on here.
supporting
Supporting
it, right,
them.
someone helping them out with it.
Right.
Yep,
Access.
but that would all come, you know, I think through the survey.
All right, so am I getting the feeling like, okay, keep it at least going for this year?
Yes.
Yep.
And then, in the meantime, use it as a transition year
Mhm.
and try to expand it. Breathe some fresh life into it.
Are the programs being looked at for all the ones that were canceled last year when there wasn't the interest, for the ones we offered and then have to give all these people money back? I mean, you
I
have to
think
look
that
at the
you've tracked all of that.
Yeah, we have the data, and then that's what the survey's
Where
gonna
is
do.
that data?
What, I have a spreadsheet, I don't have it with me, of the last few years of the enrollment and what classes have been canceled.
Actually, I did see that. It's
Yeah,
on
I
the
sent
chart.
it, I
Yeah,
did
Yes.
send it, yeah,
it's on the chart.
It is on the drive.
it's all running together.
Correct.
Our situation last year too could have impacted attendance.
That too,
Right.
yes.
Okay, E, and I'm gonna turn this one over to Dr. McCooley. The discussion of the, new positions, which really are not full-time positions,
No.
but, and the reasoning behind them.
So I wanted to give a little bit of clarification. I know some of you did ask already in the Google Doc, but just I wanted to give it to the public as well. There are 2 new positions that I'm suggesting for this board agenda. One is Ms. Shelley Meyer. She is a staff member at Stockton with an extensive background in special education. And what she is going to do for a very, very small amount is a complete audit of our special education department. We did talk about during our retreat the dollar figure of our out-of-district placements, which is extremely high. And I'm hoping that she can look at that, look at our overall special ed programs here, and give some suggestions of how to do things maybe differently in her eyes, and maybe we're doing okay, but I want that additional outside feedback. And then most importantly, trying to bring some of those out-of-district placements back and providing some programs here.
So this is a kind of a one-time, she'll come in, do her evaluation, and we'll
Yes.
be able to benefit from her expertise in
Yes.
the field.
Yes. And she has also offered to come to a board meeting if we want her to come and share information.
Great.
The other one.
Love that.
Thank you. The other one is Ms. Trina Riegelman, and she's actually here tonight if anyone has questions. I just want to go over some of the background with Trina. We call her the energy Nazi in Little Egg. In 2011, Little Egg had the opportunity to work with Synergistics, which is a company that looks at your energy usage. They give you some recommendations of how to more efficiently run your school district and to save some money, whether that's changing light bulbs, shutting things down, and so forth. To do that, what they do is they get all your bills and they charge you the first 3 years, $65,000 to do that. But they guarantee a cost avoidance in energy. So Trina has learned through them how to do that in terms of using the software program, implementing programs, changing behaviors, forming relationships. So when I sat down with the reps from Synergistics and Trina, they said if we implemented this program at Highlands, they weren't going to charge us anything. So they considered that we've already paid our dues. So they're not going to charge us that fee, and knowing that Trina has that expertise now doing that, they are turning that over to her, letting her use their software to input all of our bills and our data, and then to track that. She not only does that, and I want to make that point because I know that we're in a unique situation with only having this building. We have more students in here this year. We have the portables. But what she does is she changes behaviors. She works with students. She creates green teams. She works with staff. She teaches them about turning off lights and unplugging things when storms are going to happen. And when you're having a long weekend or holiday break, a complete shutdown of refrigerators are unplugged from the wall. They're open. They're empty. It's just really a behavior change, starting from preschool, and she does it all the way up to our staff. She has gotten grant money through those teams. So, for example, Eco Schools, she's gotten a $1,000 award. She's Sustainable Jersey, she's gotten $6,000 collectively. And over the time that Little Egg has gotten this philosophy, there's been a cost avoidance to date. We don't want to call it a cost savings because it's money you're not really seeing. You're avoiding paying. of over $1 million. So this is something that, I'm suggesting that we implement here, and immediately once I started, I thought of it because I would walk into rooms and the air conditioning would be on, the doors would be propped open, all the lights were on, and no one's been in them all day. And I would laugh and say, Trina would have a heart attack if she walked into this building, but it's really, you have to teach the behaviors. So it's something that I'm definitely advocating for. It's a minimal amount of money for the time that she puts in and the work that she does with not only the staff, the buildings, but the students. Do you have any questions about it?
Do you feel that we would at least see that dollar amount in cost avoidance this year?
Yes. Absolutely, and you'll also see presentations from students. She has built compost stations with grant money in both of the schools in Little Egg. She really teaches the kids about being green too, but yes, I absolutely think so.
I think both initiatives are very good, so thank you, Alyssa. With respect to the second one, and Trina, is it?
Yes.
I would suggest maybe an addition to that besides what you suggested. I looked online and there is and probably Trina knows this probably more than I do, but there's called a Blueprint for School Energy Teams, a guide tool for schools seeking to lower energy consumption through the formation of a student energy team. We were talking about, in terms of different ways of instructions, a student responds differently to different instructions. I could see maybe having this incorporated into a classroom setting where they take this blueprint and they form teams and they carry out projects, which then become the focus of grading, as in terms of traditional, just, looking at things. It's a very active type of program where students get involved and are committed to this energy conservation and consumption, and working with Trina and working with maybe some science teachers or something else that could even, at the high school level, make things even stronger or better. So I have the link, and maybe again.
I will tell you that, and I'm sorry if I'm not supposed to talk. At Little Egg, we have a program called Power Savers, and it's through the Alliance to Save Energy, which is, it's probably basically the same. I see it being even better in the high school and the middle school because, first of all, they can stay after school. Our problem is these kids have to do what they do during the school day, but it is curriculum-based. It's done in the classrooms, and we do it from preschool all the way up through 6th grade.
Can I give her this link?
Absolutely.
Because you might, I don't know if you're well, but I went through it, it's very good. It's for the high school kind of level. There it is, you can
Perfect.
take that, thank you.
Look at that, thank you.
Are there any more?
Yeah. So does she become an employee of Highlands? How does this work?
She's
She's a
through us.
consultant?
She's a consultant basically, and we're gonna run her through a contract as if she were like a coach after hours, because she's not
Okay.
really here when in the school day. She kind of creeps in after hours and makes sure everything's off, and she'll get keys and things like that because she has to come in when there's no people in the building.
Okay, so she's not an employee, she's an independent
Yes.
consultant or advisor?
Yes.
Is there any discipline towards non-complying employees?
Yes, so they get a toad, and
Oh, I love it.
so what she's done is she has this little toad, and if you don't turn off all devices, there's the toad. You get a toad on the end of your classroom or in your office. I get toads often if I forget to turn things off. And then the other thing is you have a Lester, but that's what the kids at Little Egg have developed. So she's going to have a contest for them to develop what they want here.
Is Toad turn off all devices?
Turn off all devices, and if they don't, they get a toad. And when we first started putting the toad on the wall, we actually we put it outside of the classroom, so she would, when you walked in the morning, you could see her toad. And then the association said that was a public reprimand, that you got a toad. So
Good.
now the toad is in the
A little
classroom.
shy of the scarlet letter here.
Yes. I find the toad to be very cute. I like the toad, but it's definitely the negative one.
I like the toad too.
Yes.
Most people do, but you don't want to get it.
You don't want a toad.
And how long did you say that you've been doing this at Little
2011.
And if I can add, that $1 million that we've saved, two things. That is mainly from turning off computers, turning off lights, turning off smart boards. That has really nothing to do with the HVAC. So that is phenomenal. Also, we weren't supposed to save that or avoid paying that for 10 years, and we did it in less than 7. So it can be done. I will tell you that I'm very passionate about this thing.
We can tell.
It's really a great program.
I just don't know how you work out the logistics for the contracting and everything else, but.
Right, so this is a set fee for the school
For the year, yes.
not an
Not
hourly
hourly,
based or.
no.
Dr. McCooley already has that information from the district, so I'm sure she can explain it in deeper detail in a different setting. I don't care if it's reports, I'm sure it works very nicely.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Can I take some toads home for my children?
That's an interesting
I
concept.
do have to get some more names.
All right, any more questions on either of these? All right, great. Let's move on then to, the topic of board forum. What's to say here?
If
Okay,
there's any other questions about the agenda or anything, we've been through a lot.
okay.
I have one thing I'd like to discuss on the board forum. I've been on the board now 18 months. And again, I want to commend Dr. McCauley for the retreat, because this was the first time when I had envisioned being a board member, I had vision collaborating and planning and engaging. That had not occurred for 18 months in terms of working with any administrative team members in any type of setting, other than say hello, maybe infrequently. So that was a pleasant, welcome change. And I think it was a very important, pleasant, welcome change. I think also that the district goals that came up in that meeting were those that I support strongly, not only the mechanism by selecting them, but they were, I think, very important goals. I do have one question or one caveat that I want to discuss in board forum. The school absenteeism, I certainly I'm aware. And again, I'm a mathematician kind of person, so I try to relate everything towards understanding by seeing the numbers. I'm aware that in the high school, and on the slide Dr. McCauley presented, our chronic absenteeism rate was 24.3%. And so we have a goal to reduce that, and our goal, district goal, is to reduce it by 10%. 10% of 24.3 is a reduction of 2.4%, which means we'll still be over 20% chronic absenteeism. Now, the state cutoff for meeting progress and moving that arrow from needs improvement to seeing progress is 10%. What gives me some pause is that reducing the chronic absenteeism by 10% gets us not out of that danger zone. So I wanted some idea in terms of, is this kind of be in terms of some type of gradual thing, if we expect more than the 10%, and the 10% is a baseline, you know, because we have to reduce it by about 60% just to move that needle to making progress. So, you know, some feedback as to what our board expectation is in terms of exact numbers we expect to see would be appreciated.
I think 10% is a rigorous goal because we're starting off so high. We're not saying that with the measures that we're going to put in place, we want that to be much more than 10%. I believe in this facet, it's more about changing the culture, changing our policies, changing our procedures. So our expectation is that the students are here. So whether that number is 10% or hopefully it's much, much higher, I think it's more about the change that's taking place that we should focus on. And we did want a quantitative goal. I mean, perhaps the board wants to change that to a qualitative goal and just say that we completely revamp and revive our expectations, our attendance policy, and our procedures.
I looked at the state average, and the state average for chronic absenteeism is 10.3%. So we're far from that. Certainly any improvement is valued, but the sooner we can approach that 10% and move that needle, you know, and certainly we can come up with programs both on a district level and a board level that can hopefully move that past that 10% figure.
The other thing that we can do, Mr. Fabricki, if you think it's more appropriate, is we could keep it as a quantitative goal and perhaps tier it. So 10% is we want to get there, but then maybe 15% is highly effective, as if we do with the teachers, and we kind of tier it. So we want to get to 10, but this is, our highly ambitious goal, and then we can have maybe 20% and we can call it something
I
else.
like that tiering.
So we can
idea.
tier it.
And also, it could be a goal for more than 1 year.
Yes.
So year one, while we're implementing a lot of the changes in policy and communication and
Right.
culture change, maybe it's something that we keep for year two and we kind of up the ante a little bit and make our goal a bit more aggressive.
Yep.
I think student awareness becomes a very big part of this. And it's almost like getting our students to buy into this, and it's almost like a competition. I don't know how much, certainly attendance or the fact that we are cited every year for chronic absenteeism. I don't know if that's ever discussed with them, but it certainly should be discussed with them, along with our staff.
It should. I mean, right now, we know that they think they can take 20 days off and
20
still
days,
be
like, they're just
okay.
days off.
So we have to change that and teach them.
Right.
Right.
I think there needs to be a buy-in. I think there needs to be incentives.
Mhm.
And I think one of the biggest ones is some of the responsibility does fall on us because they need to be engaged.
Yes.
And I think that's why those two goals work so closely together. And we know that the biggest part of our absenteeism is the students that are not engaged.
By the
Dr.
way,
What we offer.
by the way, Southern absenteeism is 18%. So we can always have a goal to beat Southern.
There you go.
Dr. McCoy, I did not read or open that slide of that information. Is that broken down by class?
In
School,
this,
by grade,
by building.
By building.
In-
not socioeconomical class?
No, I can get all that information for you, but the way that the slide presentation that I gave the other day, it was just broken down by school. So there was the junior high and the high school,
Okay,
and
well,
each one of their,
As a mathematician, you would break that down a little bit more to see what
sure.
grade levels and maybe some factors that
Mhm.
pertain to, where we target.
Right. And then we could tier it for each building too. So I can create a draft. We're working with the admin team tomorrow morning we always meet the day after a board meeting. And we could create a draft of how to tier that, and I can send that out.
And I think besides just student awareness, parental awareness, their care, and
Right.
do they push
Absolutely.
these children to come to school anyway?
Well, the admin team had brought that up, and they're being proactive and saying we're gonna meet with parents and tell them the new regulations and policy, so they're aware that it's no longer, you get 20 days, now you have to be in school. And if you're gonna be chronically absent, you're gonna go to mediation, you're gonna be taking insurance support. They need to be here.
Consequences.
Yep. And a multi-year goal, I think, is very relevant, being at the beginning of the 1920 school year, they'll be back in the high school, and I think there'll be a lot of changes, a lot more opportunities to keep our children interested.
Okay, moving on, if nobody has anything else under that.
I have one more thing on the board
Sure.
forum.
Yeah.
I'm a little concerned about the access road around the school and the proximity of the new temporary classrooms to that road. I thought about it coming in, and just sitting here with my vantage point, there have been several vehicles that have gone by.
So, that's a great question, Betty Ann, and John, jump in if I missed something. We've been working on this. So initially, about a month ago, we toured the building, and one of our initial regulations that we're putting into place for September 1, the only people that are gonna be allowed in this, to drive into this school are going to be staff members that have assigned parking spaces and the facilities. So, and the staff, obviously. And the buses will come through, drop off. We're going to mark off that no one can loop around the building, and we're gonna have chains that are gonna be
I was
out.
gonna say, you can
Other
have that
than
physical barrier.
facilities, which is 5 or 6 people, and if there's a delivery, then someone will let them through. For the TCUs, we're gonna have 2 SROs in this building next year. So one of the SRO cars will be parked out front during the day, and the other is gonna be parked on the opposite end of the TCU where the other door is. And we're considering closing that door. We had Mike Hart come in the afternoon and tour it with us as well. So, the SRO will be stationed over there. So for the traffic in and out of the building with the students, but teachers have to park across the street, half of them. Any parent drop-off has to occur across the street in that parking lot. So they'll drop their students off, they'll wrap around, and then they'll go out, and then they're gonna get walked across by the other SRO in the morning. So at no point will parents be in this area at all.
My concern is high school students, inexperienced drivers, just deciding to whip through here and drive down through there and not pay attention or be able to stop in time.
Right.
If somebody coming out of
There's
their
staff members, yeah, staff will have parking lanyards in their windows, so we know that they're allowed in here. And then no students will be allowed in this area at all. And like I said, that we're gonna have chains that go across. And then the only other thing that came up today was Rainbow Express. So they're gonna come in the far entrance, they can pull up out there, and there'll be a staff member out there to walk the kids into the building. So no one is gonna be traveling through here.
Some kind of physical barrier doesn't allow cars that exit down through
Yes,
there.
there'll be a chain that's out on each side.
Also the fence going along.
Did I
both
miss
sides.
anything, John?
Yeah, the fence.
The fence.
Fence going
Around
along,
the
so kids
the
going, walking
TCUs.
into the TCUs,
Yeah.
they won't even be in the road.
A temporary fence.
Temporary 3-rail fence.
Yep.
Thank you, John.
That's
Thank you.
Thank
Good
you for
point,
being
Diane.
proactive with that.
Yeah. All right, now moving on, opening of bids, Mr. Brennan.
Yes, we have one bid opening this month for tutoring services that will be awarded under the finance section of the agenda.
Anybody have questions on that before we move on?
Yeah, that's the one that they do online?
I believe there's both online and live.
Yes.
Yes.
And it's through the Title I, that's Cheryl's program.
I just know the same program is also offered for free by the county library system.
I don't know if it's the same program.
Yeah, maybe that's something we can look at in the future. I know it's Title I, and it's probably something we have to do, but
Is that something that we can look at maybe for next
It's
year?
not-
If
Yeah.
we're still going to offer it, partner with the county library, if they are getting it for free, is that something we look into doing?
I mean, we can talk to Cheryl to see why she does that, right? She doesn't, we would have to get them, do we log into the county library here? I don't know the details of
I
that,
don't.
but I know that, she's budgeted her Title I money for these students, but,
I just found this out.
yeah, I have no knowledge of that, so you'd have to ask her.
Do we have any students?
I don't.
Any other questions? All right, moving on to residents forum on agenda items only. Nope. Moving on. All right, I'm jumping at that. Okay, moving on to committee reports. I have already assigned these, so instructional, please.
Yes, the board met as a board of the whole this evening during workshop session, and the superintendent would like to present the following recommendations tonight under instructional items A1 through A5 for approval.
We have a second?
Second,
Any discussion?
Yes, I'd like to discuss, let me get the right number here. Under new hires, item
That's
J.
personnel.
That's
Personnel.
personnel.
Oh, I'm sorry, my mistake.
I'd like to
Thank
discuss
you.
item 1C, motion to approve first reading of the school day policy. The suggestion is to change the policy to reflect the new start times that will be occurring this year. My preference would be to suspend policy 8220 as opposed to change it. I think if we change it, we're giving tacit approval to the early start time as having some educational or value. I think if we suspend it, that gives us time to look at the issue of start times in detail, to do a thorough analysis, to find out what would work, what wouldn't work, and then next year to revise that policy to reflect what the research shows that would be most beneficial to our students. So my preference is to suspend that as opposed to change that policy at this time.
So,
What would the rationale behind the change is because of busing, correct?
All we changed was the
Yeah,
start
the
times,
start
'cause-
time.
because our start times are different for this
Right.
year, so the policies existed. The only thing that's different is the time starts, because our time starts are different.
And the policy as a first reading does not reflect the changes in time?
It does.
It does.
Yeah.
But I'm just sort of afraid that that gives it credence by having it as a policy with those start times. And suspending the policy provides for a more thorough investigation before we come up with start times for the following year when the high school opens.
but otherwise, wouldn't our policy have start times that are not actually what we would be starting?
Correct.
Right, so I guess I would propose or suggest we approve the policy, but I don't think that holds us back from doing any analysis to say going forward, when we, go back to 2 buildings, do we want to adjust them
I think we have to have something in place
for September?
For this year,
for what is occurring now, and again, it does not mean that
You can't change
we
the policy
can't
again.
look at what is beneficial, if it's possible.
I just know a few parents have asked me, what's the time for with the schools, with the changes? So I think it would be helpful if we have something out there that is a reference point that
And-
families know what's happening.
Right,
and on the internet so they can see it.
right,
All right, I take my objection
Have to
away.
work in reality.
okay. All right,
Any further discussion? All right, Mr. Bonnie,
Yes.
Mrs. Chambers?
Yes.
Ms. Hannadel?
Yes.
Mr. Kubricki?
Yes,
Mrs. McVeigh?
Yes.
Ms. Palladino?
Yes.
Mrs. Paklakua?
Yes.
Mr. Williams?
Yes,
Mrs. Ernst?
yes.
Motion's carried.
Moving on to personnel, Mr. Bonnicky.
Yes, Madam President, the board as a whole has reviewed the superintendent's following recommendations for approval. Items B1 through B9 and B12 through B23, while tabling items B10 and B11. I ask for a motion to approve those items listed.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Yes. My apology. Item G, 1G. And I'd like a discussion on the step that's being proposed here. And after looking at the resume, I'm looking at part-time work only. So I'm not quite sure, how anyone else feels, but maybe you can share some information, Dr. Cleary.
So I actually did speak with Mr. Mulligan, and he had 2 full years at Coastal.
Why is that not reflected on his resume?
I thought we had the discussion that this was going to be a step 1.
I think it was revised.
It was step 3,
It was
and
revised.
then it was going to be, it was talked about with step 1, and then I did send an email out to the board about updated information, and I apologize, I'm looking at this now. I have something else than this one. I had his, the resume that I had from him had 2 years at Coastal.
That is not on what was posted to the board.
And I
Yeah, just-
apologize if I'm mixing up the individuals. I think you sent an email about one of these. Was
That's
this
the
the
same one.
candidate that was also part-time, that one of those candidates?
At Bass River, yes.
This is,
This candidate was a alumni of finance.
Yes.
So there is.
And I
some-
apologize, I don't know why I do it. Clicking on the link, I'm seeing what you're seeing. The one that I had was different than this.
Okay, so there is experience, 2 years at Coastal?
At Coastal.
Okay, and,
And then I also had a list, and I will send this out, it's on my desk. I also had a list of his certifications, and he had CDL, he had a lot of other things. I don't know if this one on here is not an updated one, that wouldn't make sense either. Yeah. I apologize, this isn't the one that I had when I spoke to him on the phone.
Right, okay.
So do we table it, or what do we else do?
Are
Well,
you saying step one?
Well, I was just questioning the resume here.
Yeah, no, I'm
That
not
there
disagreeing with
wasn't
you.
any
Hey, that's what
full-time
we were
experience
provided.
warranting.
so you're
the step.
saying that basically there are 2 years full-time experience
At Coastal.
at Coastal?
And then the part-time was Bass River, and that was
Part-time
3
Bass
days a week. I did have a conversation with him.
At the same time then, simultaneously?
No,
And,
and I can send his updated information.
Are you comfortable with this step two? You said you had a conversation.
I did,
with him
and that's why I
about
thought step two was fair, and that's when I sent that information out to the board after I spoke with him. No, that's okay, no, seeing what you're seeing, I would be confused too.
Thank you for the clarification.
Sorry about that, I'll send that out.
Can we also find out how and why that occurred?
Yep, sure.
how what? How, why?
How and
oh,
why
how?
this,
Is Coastal full-time or?
two different.
It was full-time.
So then I would gather, my question to you was, G versus F, and why one candidate would get a temporary position versus the full position. So I guess that experience,
was
that
direct-
wasn't on
yes,
the resume,
exactly.
and would have factored in.
Yes, all she had at this point was student teaching at Southern.
Got it.
Any other questions?
I just want to make a comment,
I'm
Go
gonna
ahead.
get that and send it out, because.
not necessarily a question, and I know
Exactly.
this will be discussed at our meeting with Amy, but, and I know we all, and I brought this up many times, and I'm sure many of you are tired of listening, but I still take my responsibility seriously when our ethics says I will vote to appoint the best qualified personnel available after consideration. Now, I looked at a 2004 discussion paper, where they put together 6A 32-4-1A. They combined it, and I brought this up again, each district board of education shall determine guidelines for the hiring of all staff. Now, in reading the discussion paper, it was suggested in there that this rule or regulation was put in particularly for the board, so that they can meet their ethics requirement to see that the best qualified candidate is being hired. So by having the board establish guidelines and then having the administration determining a hiring process from that guidelines, that would ensure the board members and make it easier them to meet that requirement. We still don't have those guidelines, and I'm sure we will get them shortly in the next month or two, hopefully in August. As a board, we can determine them. But in the meantime, then we have to look at the hiring process that prevails at Pinelands. And after looking over the material submitted, again, the process does not give me a great deal of confidence that I can support any of these candidates. One of the keys in looking at the material was reason why the finalist was selected. So I'm reading that, I'm looking, all right, I gotta choose the best, I gotta support the best qualified candidate, and they're going to tell me the reasons why this candidate was the best qualified. Years of experience, the lesson plan they delivered, a series of supportive arguments that would make it clear and easy for me to make that decision and come up in the affirmative. Here's one of them that says, the reason why the candidate was selected. 97 applicants were submitted, and the reason why the candidate was selected was top overall candidate.
I wanna jump in there too, though, when that is a little unclear, there's only a small little box for the administrator to write in there. But what they also submit to me is the overall score sheet of who was on that interview committee, all of the scores for all the questions. I get the questions, I get the amount of times that they were interviewed, I get the lesson plan, I get the score from when they did their demo. All that information is provided to me as the superintendent. There's a very extensive hiring process that has been put into place with a committee, and they follow all of those steps. So when the superintendent is recommending a candidate, it is based on the recommendation of that committee that has done that extensive work. So I think when we do meet with Amy and the board comes up with those parameters of what they think is a good candidate, that will help, and we can turn that back to the committee at the administrative team and make sure that that's all incorporated. But there's a great deal of work that goes into the selection of these candidates. So perhaps the sheet that you're seeing needs to change. And you could get an overall score for that candidate out of 100 or out of whatever it is.
The information that's provided, so, we can vote in the affirmative,
With confidence.
certainly
I mean-
you might have it, but I don't have it.
And
I'm
you
the
do,
one who has
you do
to
have
vote.
their resumes, but
I think
perhaps
that's-
that sheet needs to change to say out of 80 points, this one scored 79. So we can change, and tweak the overall cover sheet, but there is a lot of work that goes into the hiring process.
A couple of the reasons listed in some of the candidates were very intensive and very clear to make the argument that this was the best candidate, but about half of them, didn't have the level of detail and the level of professionalism you would expect in terms of making that recommendation and requiring or asking for my vote.
And that's something that Melissa can work with the
Sure.
administration on saying this is what the board would like to see as part of that
Right.
process.
And then we just perhaps tweak that cover sheet.
Well, they have been working on it, and I
Yeah.
understand we're gonna have a plan coming forward.
But you see that detail.
I see all of that, and I see,
Everybody?
I'm sorry,
Do you meet everybody?
I meet the top two.
Oh.
The top
okay,
two
the
candidates.
Top two.
Mhm.
So you've met them before the final selection?
Yes.
Right.
And Stephen, what you read as far as what our role is, I think you used the word, that was off your sheet, we determine the guidelines,
Mhm.
is that what it said? And I think that's part of the interpretation too, we're not establishing per se,
Right.
but we need the information to determine whether the candidate is appropriate. So I
And
think
we don't have
that's-
to decide who's best, that's
Right.
micromanaging. But we have to have guidelines as to, what
How they
occurs in the
get there.
process and what we get to see so that we're comfortable in making an affirmative vote. And
And I
right now,
think-
we don't have one.
And I think one of the things you can look at is your regulation for 3125, which is employment of teaching staff members. That might be a natural fit to put in there
To put
what
in some
those,
guidelines.
what those guidelines would be. Sure. Because that really is your policy in place that says, you've authorized the superintendent to go forward and hire, and that person has to have appropriate certification, et cetera.
Any other questions, discussion?
Yeah, I have another, sorry, again, but I have a comment question on items 7 and 8 under salary. The contract provided. I know we talked about this as a board, and there was a general agreement as the percentage increase, but again, percent increase is different than the dollar increase. And I have a strong philosophical position that those who make the highest amount of money, and we talked a little bit about this when we did our non-teaching staff, those at the lower end, we gave more raises than those at the upper end. And so now we have our administrators who,
And I just want to remind you, Mr. Kubicki, that we did not rice notice any particular.
I'm not naming anyone, yes.
Okay,
There's
so-
general discussion about raises without particular things. So the proposal for Primo calls for an average dollar increase in terms of the administration rate of $4,013. So on average, each of the administrators in the Primo, the contract that's up for vote calls for them to get an increase of $4,000 plus buyback of 5 vacation days, which was not on the previous contract. Now, our teachers who we settled for and who make considerably less are not getting $4,000 increase. I was looking at the form that Steve put together, and it seemed they range based on their step and their degrees anywhere from $1,000 to $3,000. And the average, I suspect, is in the upper 2,000s, although I could be mistaken, because I couldn't find the average dollar amount, and I didn't have time to average it myself. So what we're basically voting on is to give the administrators a dollar increase of $4,000, and we gave our teachers an average increase considerably less than that. And I don't think that's fair. I think that's a slap in the face of the teachers. And I think our increase to the administrators, while we might have the same percentage increase, is excessive. And I will not be voting for those increases for the administrators because they far outsurpass what we've given to our teachers, who are our lifeblood of this institution.
Any other discussion? Okay.
Roll call, Mr. Bonnick.
Yes.
Mrs. Chambers.
Yes.
Ms. Hannadel.
Yes.
Mr. Kubricki.
No on item B1, all the new hires, and no on item B7 and 8. Everything else, yes.
All right, Mrs. McVeigh.
Yes.
Ms. Palladino.
Yes.
Mrs. Pakakua.
I am a yes, with the exception of B7. I will abstain. And item 16H, I will recuse myself.
Mr. Williams.
Yes on all but B6, abstain.
Okay. Mrs. Ernst.
Yes.
Motion's carried.
Moving on to operations, please.
The Operations Committee met as a committee of the whole as well earlier this evening, and with the recommendation of the superintendent and the business administrator, I would like to present items C1 and C2 for approval.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All right, Mr. Bonnick.
Yes.
Mrs. Chambers.
Yes.
Ms. Hannadel.
Yes.
Mr. Kubricki.
Yes.
Mrs. McVeigh.
Yes.
Ms. Palladino.
Yes.
Mrs. Pakakua.
Yes.
Mr. Williams.
Yes.
Mrs. Ernst.
Yes.
Motion's carried.
Okay, and D, which is now called report of the board secretary, it is finance, please.
We spoke tonight as a whole, and with the recommendation of the business administrator and the superintendent, who present the following, D1 through D19, I ask for a motion to approve.
Motion.
Do we have a second?
I'll second. Am I loud?
Any discussion? All right,
Yes, actually, sorry. Item 19 talks about the reduction in state funding, and it talks about a decrease of $294,292. So the words say a decrease, but I'm just noticing when I look at the chart that you have there, it shows the original budget and adjustment, and the revised budget is higher. So what we're doing there is building up our general fund to offset the impact from the state aid? Is that why the
No.
revised budget is higher?
no, what the columns are representing is what was represented in our original budget. So for example, the budgeted fund balance is the amount that we used on the revenue side to balance our budget. So we're using surplus to fund the expenditure side of the budget. That amount in our original budget was 1.2 million. So because of the state aid decrease, which is on the other side of the,
We have to fund more.
we have to fund more through our savings.
Okay.
So we would either have to decrease expenditures or find another revenue source. In this case, we're using more fund balance, which is concerning, and we had this discussion, but the timing of how we have to turn this around is non-existent, so we didn't have time to really go back into the budget and rebudget everything. So really, the concept here is saying, we're gonna use the accumulated savings that we're going to try and generate throughout the entire budget over the next year, so we can generate that surplus in 18-19. Keeping in mind, that was already a concern going into the next year's budget. So this is a very big concern that we have, which is why, at a meeting yesterday, there is an opportunity for us to apply for emergency aid from the state. It's a one-shot opportunity. It's not something that'll accumulate over the years. It'll be gone next year. But at least it'll give us some time to adapt and get there if we get the money. So consider it more of a grant than it is state aid. But that is an opportunity that Melissa and I are going to be pursuing aggressively. Keeping in mind we're going to be competing with probably all the other districts in the state that reduce state aid to get as much of that emergency funds that are available as possible.
Is that right away? Because I got the email.
It's a quick turnaround.
There's a short
Yeah,
timeline too.
We're supposed to get guidance on that next week, and the application, I'm told now, is due on August 7th. When they will respond, I don't have that.
And it's coming from the state?
Yes.
Steve, I could be mistaken, and I probably am. And I saw this figure a couple of weeks ago in terms of this reduction. But yesterday, I was looking, and I had thought I had seen a new revised final, and this figure has been changed so that we're only losing like $1,200, at least from what I thought I saw yesterday. I don't know if I misread that or if I saw this one originally, but yesterday seemed to indicate that we had somehow, our percent decrease was way considerably less.
That,
Piggyback, wasn't there something else that they gave us back like $120,000 or something?
what they were doing there is, and I don't know the exact document you were looking at, but we were looking at the same thing where we thought this is based on our actual state aid notices, so this is specifically from the state. The other stuff that came out through New Jersey School Boards Association, what they compared was our 2017-18 state aid, which was considerably less to what we're getting in 2000 revised in 18-19. 2017-18 doesn't really concern us anymore because we've already budgeted on the figures that we were given for 18-19, which was $294,000 higher. So that might be some of what you're looking at. We could talk about it afterwards if you want to show it to me, but I'm pretty certain that's probably because we saw that and we took the first glance, okay, it's not so bad, and then
I thought the same thing.
Then we dove into it, and Melissa and I were talking, well, that was a little tricky because, well, yes, it's not that much less than last year. It is certainly much more or less this year.
So at some point, somebody will be able to verify the exact dollars.
That's it.
That is the exact
That's it.
dollars.
So now what we do is we went in, the DOE sent out a broadcast, we had to go in and log in. You go into your school district, that's the number.
You can actually log on to the state website. I did it right now, and it's the exact same number. You can just search it in Ocean County.
Anything else?
Yes, item 7, the Safe Routes to School grant. So is that something we're doing in cooperation with Little League?
Yes.
Is there money attached to this? I mean, if I think of next year, do we really want to promote kids walking and biking to school next year with everything going on?
This year.
Well, this coming school year.
This is
Right?
to
Isn't that
actually
what
get a
this is about?
grant. So what we're doing with Little League is they want to get a grant from the state to promote a safe route to school. So that ability to promote the safe route to school would be to give them money. We've provided them information as well, that how many students we have that walk and bike to school. Then they would install sidewalks, crosswalks,
Okay,
and things like that. So it's not.
but we're not doing that. This is in partnership with the Little Lake Township.
We're basically providing Little League with all the information, and they're going to get the grant so that they can do the infrastructure upgrade.
Thank you.
Anything else?
A bill comment, another question on the bills list. I saw on the bills list our yearly fee for Strauss, and that's fine, but now that we have a joint superintendent, and I suspect the Little League also pays a fee to Strauss. And I'm wondering probably if Bass River and Tuckerton and Eagleswood also pays fee to Strauss. Might it be possible in the future?
Can I interrupt 1 minute?
Sure.
Mr. Reed? And I'm sorry, but are you gonna come back?
I'm gonna come back.
We need to sign. Okay. Thank you.
Might
I'm
it be
very sorry.
possible that we can coordinate that service, so instead of us paying 5,000, a Little Lake paying 5,000, only one of the corresponding school districts pay the
Yeah,
5,000, and then we share that, notices?
That would be something I think that Dr. LaPooley would have to talk to Strauss Esme about, because there's copyright, proprietary information. They provide the service, and part of that service is they're providing that particular school district with those services, with their information that they provide. So we would need to talk to them to see if they would be willing to provide some maybe compensation package to lessen that expense.
When I log into Strauss Esme at Little Lake, they're all Little Lake ones there, and then when I log in here, they're Pineland specific. So, you know, the updates would be helpful to see what mandates have changed, but in terms of what currently exists, it's very specific to the school district. So that's what Amy's saying, I have to see if they would allow us some compensation for that.
It's a great
That's a
idea
good
to
idea.
always look. It's a great idea to look.
Yeah.
Okay. Any further questions, discussion? All right, Mr. Bonnick,
Yes.
Mrs. Chambers,
Yes, with the exception of item 1, I'm going to abstain on all transfers.
Ms. Hannah.
I'm going to say yes to everything except the bills list. I didn't get through it. I'm gonna just abstain on that. With that,
Mr. Kabricki,
Yes.
Mrs. McVeigh,
Yes.
Ms. Palladino,
Yes.
Mrs. Pakwakua,
Yes.
Mr. Williams,
Yes.
Mrs. Ernst,
Yes, with the exception of item 3, I will abstain.
motion's carried.
Last, or, well, not last exactly, but we will move on to residents forum. General topics, please.
I just, sorry. I know we've been here a while. My question, it just something popped in there when we were talking about salaries and stuff like that, and I was thinking, how does the administrator, healthcare cost work in relation to the teacher healthcare cost? Like, is it the same scale? Is there an entirely different plan? Like, how does that all work out?
Maybe Steve wants to, do you want to explain that to him?
All employees are eligible for the same plan.
Okay.
So depending on what they take, obviously the premiums are different, but if a teacher takes a family plan, an administrator takes a family plan, it's the same plan. As far as the contribution goes, it's really on a sliding scale, almost like a tax bracket.
Mhm.
Every 5,000, the contribution percentage goes up. So for example, the administrator who has typically higher salary will be paying a higher percentage of that premium than someone with a lower salary.
Is that state mandated? Is that?
Yes.
Because it just seems kind of like, I mean, obviously.
Chapter 78, if you want to look it up.
Yeah, no,
there's some
it just seems to me, I'm like, oh, I got a raise, but now I make less, because now I made 2,000 more, but I have to pay 5,000 more, so I have less. But, okay, that's state level, so it's not, I just wanted to understand it. Thank you.
Anybody else? No? Okay, before we move to board forum, and it's really before I forget, the meeting schedule has been changed because of a conflict. So our meeting in August will be on the 14th, okay, instead of the following day, which is the 15th. Do I have that right?
Yes.
And also, before we move on to board forum, I just would like to make a note and respectfully remember Evelyn Adams, who was a custodian in our high school when it opened in 1979. Her children were graduates of Pinelands. Evelyn was from England, and she was a Pip. And she grew up during a very difficult time in England during the 30s and 40s, but she was a wealth of information to those of us who are involved in English literature and teaching history. She was always there, always willing to share a funny story. Evelyn passed away. She retired from Pinelands after I don't know how many years of service, probably over 30. So I just wanted to take a moment to pay my respects to her and for everything she did for this district. So, moving on to board forum, Mr. Bonnicky, let's start with you.
I have nothing to add at this time of importance, so then I hope everyone's enjoying their summer.
Well, that's important.
Yes, it is.
Yes, it is. Okay.
And continue to do so.
Yes.
I would just like to say thank you, Dr. McCooley, for bringing on some new programs here and breathing some needed energy into our district. So love your ideas so far. Look forward to you bringing more and contributing
Thank
more.
you.
And I'm glad to see that Mr. Balone has really hit the job running and was happy to get the construction update and hear that things are going well. So just that, thank you all for coming, and I see some faces in the audience which I think are some of our new staff members, so welcome, and thank you for coming.
Yes.
Thank
Kim.
you, everyone, for coming. Thank you. Thank you. That's it.
Christie?
I want to give a little shout out to one of our staff members, Mrs. Colella. She worked with me in my son this year, and she is going to be shipped off to the military so we could stay safe here while she's doing her duties overseas. I want to thank her and wish her luck, and can't wait to get her back.
Yeah. Thank you, Christie. Mrs. Chambers?
Yes, Dr. McCooley, thank you very much for a very good retreat. It was well received. Activities were great, and it was a wealth of information. I think it was real important to get together with the administration and work collaboratively as a team. I know we had some fun in our group with the icebreaker routine, although we didn't win.
We did.
I'm not quite sure how the other team did. I didn't know we were allowed to use tape, but anyway, it was fun. Yeah, it was fun. Mr. Balone, welcome on board. I know you start July 1, so as Karen said, you've hit the ground running, and I'm sure you've been very busy, but we're very happy that you are here, so
Thank you.
thank
Glad
you
to
very
be here.
much. Thank you. And yes, we do have some new faces, and I also echo the same welcome to Pinelands. Enjoy the rest of your summer, because September will be here before you know it. So thank you for coming, and have a nice evening.
Thank you, Pat.
Thanks
Betty
everybody
Ann?
for coming and have a good night. So long.
Ronnie?
Thank everyone for coming. Dr. McCooley, thank you for the breath of fresh air here to Pinelands, and let's keep it going. Thank you.
Mr. Convertin?
President Ernst, question for you.
I may not have an answer. Yes.
I think our meeting with Amy is going to be very important, and part of that meeting, again, is the board self-evaluation. Where is the board in terms of the self-evaluation reports from each of the members? Have each of the members completed their reports? Where do we stand so that we can move to that meeting with a lot of important data?
Yes, I spoke to Mary Ann yesterday and the day before yesterday. All of our board evaluations have been completed with the exception of one, which Mary Ann has reached out to, not because the person didn't want to complete it, because Mary Ann did tell me they were having a terrible time with their computer system, etc. So that was going to be in my own board forum, is to thank everybody for completing that, because it is very important that we have that. So
Are we
yes.
going to have that at the?
Then as soon as she compiles everything, okay, because it does take time to compile it and analyze it, then she will be in touch with me regarding dates that she can come and present, and we can work on that last board goal.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I have one last question, if I could squeeze in before you do yours.
Sure.
Under the, where we added the 21, 22, 23, is that under,
B.
sorry, B, what do we call it, B? Personnel.
Personnel.
Steve, right now it just shows like the header. In the minutes, can we expect to see the full resolution, so we know what that is?
They were too long to put in.
Yeah, they're long.
It'll be reflected in there.
Okay.
I put
So
those
those
notes
are in the minutes, good, thank you, sorry.
No problem. I can be very brief, and again, I want to thank Melissa for his breath of fresh air. I really, this week, I want to thank Steve for his patience because, and he's going to have some more because my questions are numerous, because there are so many things regarding finances that I don't get. I just think I'm dyslexic or something when it comes to numbers. So it does take a lot of patience to deal with me. But overall, you know, there were a lot of things that needed to be settled, a lot of things that needed to be discussed. There were times when I was extremely frustrated, I was hurt, I was angry. And so this week, who I would really like to thank is my vice president. Because unfortunately, it is Mrs. Chambers who has to listen to me when I make no sense and I am ranting, and I really don't know what to do because I'm pacing through the house. So, you know, although sometimes the job of vice president, you think you're just sitting there, and that may be what it appears, but she has been my, she's been my scapegoat, I guess. Mr. Balone, welcome.
Thank you.
And I know from our discussion the other day after the construction meeting that you have been very busy.
Yes.
So welcome to Pinelands.
Thank you.
All right?
And the job of vice president is to talk the president off the wall.
Well, yes. I think that's how she would have described it,
But it's
yes.
not just now, for 40 years, yeah.
Oh, we just,
Okay.
we just did,
Motion to
2
adjourn.
nights worth of meetings in 3 hours.
Yes, that's very good.
This is
All right, so may I now please have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? We're adjourned at 9 p.m. 9 p.m.
I saw this, and